I delivered this statement on behalf of the two co-pen holders, Germany and Belgium, and I welcome the presence here of Minister Maas of Germany. I would like to thank Assistant Secretary General Muller and Executive Director for their briefings. You helped us to shed light on the ongoing tragedy in Syria, illustrated with concrete examples you have encountered in Idlib, and the vital work UNICEF and OCHA are undertaking to alleviate the unspeakable suffering. Both briefings recalled once again that 11 million of Syrians, in particular children, continue to be in need of humanitarian help and protection after 9 years of war. These numbers need to prompt us into action. They are a dire reminder that the humanitarian situation in Syria has to remain on top of the agenda of this Council, and that this Council needs to act. More than ever before, the situation in Idlib requires our common attention and common action. 950,000 persons have been fleeing the violence since the beginning of December, and OCHA is foreseeing another 200,000 men, women and children who may have to take this decision shortly. The conditions for these people are extremely dire. If they decide to stay behind, they risk being hit by blind bombardments. If they decide to leave, they have no other option but to join those who have already found refuge in overpacked camps, in unfinished housing, in tents, and for the most unfortunate, under open sky in freezing temperatures. Let us make no mistake. All of those people face serious protection risks. The situation in Idlib goes beyond the very foundation of why we all committed to the principles of international humanitarian law. These principles must not be neglected. They must be put into practice. We would like to join the Secretary General in his statement last week in which he called for an immediate ceasefire, adding, "There is no military solution for the Syrian crisis. The only possible solution remains political. This man-made humanitarian nightmare for the long-suffering Syrian people must stop. It must stop now." Following the adoption of Resolution 2504 on the cross-border mechanism, we, the co-pen holders, thank the Secretary General for his report concerning alternative modalities to the Al Yaroubiya crossing that regrettably could not be extended along with the two crossings into Idlib last month. We, the co-pen holders, will continue to consult with all members of this Council in transparent and inclusive way in order to consider how best to take the option outlined in this report forward. This Council has to guarantee that the UN and its humanitarian partners can continue to deliver vital humanitarian assistance to all those in need in a timely, safe, sustained and unimpeded manner. The Syrian people need our commitment. Their humanitarian needs should be our constant guideline. We will address this further in our national statements. I thank you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I will now make my intervention in my national capacity. I would like to start with a tribute to all the humanitarian workers in Syria. Also, a lot of these humanitarian workers are Syrians, especially those who provide support to the northwest of the country. Since the beginning of the Syrian crisis in 2011, Belgium has provided more than 230 million euro to alleviate the humanitarian needs of the Syrian population. We intend to approve an additional 14 million euro of humanitarian aid to the Syrian people via the cross-border pooled fund and the Syrian Humanitarian Fund. I would like to focus my remarks on 2 points. First, the situation in Idlib, and second, the question of the humanitarian access. On the situation in Idlib, this Council has the mandate and the responsibility to maintain peace and international security. The situation in Idlib requires the full attention of this Council. I support the Secretary General in his call for an immediate and sustainable ceasefire. We call on all parties concerned to show a maximum level of restraint. The front lines have progressed towards the most densely populated areas. All humanitarian action risks to get suffocated. Moreover, the direct confrontation between Turkey and on one hand, and Syria and Russia on the other hand, constitutes a dangerous escalation that could lead to unpredictable consequences. Belgium repeats its unequivocal condemnation of the attacks perpetrated by terrorist groups designated by this Council. But efforts to fight against terrorism must never discharge parties from their obligation under international humanitarian law. These grave violations of international humanitarian law cannot stay unpunished. I want to reiterate the political and financial support of Belgium to the international, impartial, and independent mechanism for Syria. We fully support the Board of Inquiry. On the second topic of question of humanitarian access. Since 2014, humanitarian needs in Syria have all but decreased. Well, on the contrary. Regrettably, no agreement was reached in January to renew the crossing of Yarubia, which offered access to the people in need in the northeast through the more direct route and in accordance with the humanitarian principles of humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence. We thank the Secretary General for his report on the alternative modalities for the border crossing. The report shows clearly that this gap will be hard to fill. It offers two venues. On one hand, it clearly states that the cross-line access can only work if four conditions are fulfilled. In view of the past experiences, the international community needs verifiable, unquestionable guarantees that the Syrian authorities will implement the conditions as outlined by Mrs. Muller in full and without delay. The UN needs to monitor this closely and deliver full and detailed data that should allow the Security Council to fully understand the implementation of those conditions, and specifically where gaps in humanitarian access remain. The Syrian authorities' track record on humanitarian access leaves room to much question. Their good faith will be systematically evaluated on the full and durable implementation of these conditions. A partial or conditional implementation is unacceptable. The second venue mentioned in the report is the crossing point of Tal Abyad as the most feasible alternative to Yarubia crossing when it comes to cross-border options. As such, this option must be actively considered by all Council members in conjunction with the necessary prerequisites and guarantees. The co-pen holders will, as mentioned before, continue to see how best to take the options outlined in the report forward. Our focus must be access to humanitarian aid for all those in need. Today, more than ever, is time for action. Thank you. Je reprends alors mes fonctions de président du Conseil.